chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley Show conversation with James Farr. James said something that caught me off guard. Black Altadena is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at kbla1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So go to kbla1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Jackson Jr. Show on Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns. Gina is the creator of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and we are excited to round out our week right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Gina is the president and CEO of 519 Productions and the executive producer and director of the show, a graduate of Hampton University with a degree in mass communications and arts and journalism. Gina also earned a master's in theology and social justice from Princeton Theological Seminary. She's the co-producer of the Emmy Award-nominated documentary, Hampton University, One of the Wonders of the World, and as a writer and performer, her single, Yes, hit number 26 on the Billboard charts. She produced and directed a live broadcast, An Afternoon with Dr. Lewis Sullivan, medical doctor, of course, and influenced a rewrite of the opening scene and position of Morehouse School of Medicine's brand while directing communications, logistics, and location management of the HBO film, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Hello, Jesse Jackson Jr.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Gina, we had an amazing week that you put together. Moving Mountain Mondays, building faith week to week, generation to generation, with Dr. Teresa Hort Owens. Our very special guest this week was none other than the eminent biblical scholar, Aubrey Hendricks. Aubrey had a lot to say, Gina, about what was going on in the Middle East. He had a lot to say about the political ethics of our country and what's going on in our nation. He talked about some of everything, and I think it's one of the most profound conversations we had, and even more than profundity, he hung around for the second hour and met Dr. Teresa Hort Owens. I think something special is going to happen there.
Absolutely. I think that I was watching his face during the show, and while she was talking, I could see him every now and then do the famous Aubrey Hendricks. So I know that it was a pleasant surprise, but as always, we, love the fact that someone who wrote something as prolific as The Politics of Jesus and the other things that he's written, we could have him on the show.
Gina, let me ask you a question about the politics of Jesus. And in a real sense, those of us who are Christian are trying to navigate the new world, the space, any space for that matter. If we're living in our faith, we are really trying to determine for ourselves what Jesus's politics would be. I think Charles Spurgeon asked the question, what would Jesus do? how would he do it? And that would probably be the best guide for us as individuals to determine what course of action we should always take in the present. Gina, how do we navigate? And I think that's what Aubrey's struggle is, and Dr. Teresa Hord Owens's struggle is. How do we navigate this space?
Well, I think when you are a person like Aubrey Hendricks, who liberation theology, just oozes out of his pores. And that's not just liberation theology for anyone. It is a human message. And so that the justice of Jesus is the challenge that he presents for everyone. And that is having a place to lay your head, having a place to open your door to someone else who is in need of laying their head, having something to eat when you're thirsty, someone giving you something to drink. That message, is not as widely preached. And I think, certainly we had some discussion about Martin Luther King and his call upon those who say that they believe Jesus. And so it's not just believing in Jesus, but to believe Jesus means to follow Jesus and to use this bad word, obey Jesus.
We turned the corner after Monday onto Tuesday, and there, of course, we had Tenacious Tuesdays with our outstanding contributor, Barbara.
Barbara, we just love her. Our weekly host. I got to do my Barbara Arnwhite now. One thing everyone is going to find out about, I love to, in a playful and very loving way, imitate people. And Barbara just gets going and she's so excited. She brings such a fresh breath to all that is going on that otherwise is not the greatest news all the time, but she tells us very plainly. She puts it where the goats can get it.
I know that the time draws near, but she also rang the bell, Gina, on the Voting Rights Act of 1965.
She absolutely did. And what's so disheartening about it is that, and when we get to Wednesday, we'll just talk about the fact that without process, without respect for the process in the United States, those who would hold office, those who would be appointed to offices, have no regard for the history of our country or for even moving it forward. So
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to Jesse Jackson on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Fat Meat Fridays, and our regular host, Gina Towns, reflectivity and moving our processes and our show forward. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, more with Gina Towns.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
You hear that? That's Mike sleeping soundly on a Sunday night. That's because Mike was smart this time. He took ZQL Ultra to fall asleep fast, stay asleep longer, and get the deeply restorative sleep he needs. So now he wakes up refreshed and ready to conquer Mondays.
Let's do this Monday.
ZQL Ultra. Not for colds, just for sleep. Really great sleep. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Let's go.
You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, and COVID-19. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and help strengthen your immune response. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Schedule in minutes at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-550-9651. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 five-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-550-9651. That's 800-550-9651. Tax Relief Advocates, real solutions for real people.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is Fat Meat Fridays, where we engage in serious reflectivity with none other than Gina Towns. Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Well, thank you for having me forward.
Gina, I was particularly impressed on Tuesday with Bishop Tolton. Wow.
Wow is right. Bishop Tolton is, I think I've been looking for him for almost all of my life. What a scholar. Another person who put it right where, and I'll call us sheep for the day. The sheep could really, really get it. He offered for us an explanation of the march forward for MAGA, and especially for those people who are of faith. It's important to know the biblical precedent that they operate in and why there is a march forward. So actually, our guest in this hour is going to shed some more light so that we could dig a little bit more deeply into Bishop Tolton's show. I actually invited him. He was unable to come because he had to attend to some medical things with his mom, but he's certainly coming back at some point.
I certainly look forward to hearing from Reverend Neighbors shortly. Let's go to Wednesday. Reverend Todd Yeary.
Whoa.
Atiba Madian.
Atiba. Always a pleasure to have Atiba on. If you did not hear that show, please download that podcast, because Atiba had with him Texas Representative Jolanda Jones, and many people know by now Jolanda and her companions, her colleagues are
on the run.
Texas, and
they're on the run.
Today, the FBI was called in to try to find them. And I just don't know. I mean, we've seen a lot of things transpire in our country. And at times, certainly, we've shown a darker side. And while this may not be as dark as some of the sides we've seen, it certainly is a dark side in that we see it leading somewhere very dark.
I was moved by this Glanny. She called herself a Glanny, a grandmother.
Glammy.
Who would a Glammy?
Glamorous granny.
Oh,
Glammy.
A Glammy. Okay, yes. Well, she was every bit of that. But she was really, really clear. She's running for Congress in the 18th Congressional District, a district that was once headed by Barbara Jordan, then Mickey Leland, then Sheila Jackson Lee. And so this is a firepower district that brings tremendous leadership to the nation. And these challenges to the Voting Rights Act, I don't think they're going anywhere.
No.
Trump's trying to squeeze out a few more seats.
This has been an ongoing goal for really going all the way back to Nixon, but then, promoted much more along the way with policy under Reagan. And, nobody has been as, I think, dramatic and nasty about it, though. There's always been room for conversation. At least it seemed that way. And where we are right now, one could lose hope. And that's one thing that I did appreciate about her fight in particular, and the things that she had to say, because she has been up against so much in her life. And that's a lot of America. If you are human, the pitfalls and the rainy days of life and even thunderstorms are going to hit you at some point. But, she is full of fight, and they are not going down without a fight for the redistricting to keep the seats that have been garnered by the Voting Rights Act. And so we appreciate their courage, and we have to support them.
No doubt about it. And I'm actually losing sleep over the attack on the Voting Rights Act that is commencing in Texas. It's heading to California. It's heading to Illinois, New York, New Jersey. And in order to create more competitive so-called democratic districts that usually comes at the expense of the Voting Rights Act. That is, they'll take brown constituents out of Hispanic districts and move them to marginally Republican, Democratic, white districts. They'll take African Americans, people of color, out of African American districts consistent with the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and move them to the same marginal Democratic and Republican districts in order to create Democratic majorities. But a Democratic majority does not always mean black. It does not mean us. It does not mean progressive. It just means maybe a blue dog, maybe a mealy mouth Democrat. It probably means someone who, when they win, they will not vote for Hakeem Jeffries to be speaker because they can't take Hakeem Jeffries back to a district that's nearly evenly divided between Democrats and Republicans, with half the district being MAGA and obsessed with Donald Trump. So I'm deeply concerned about that.
Are they really obsessed with Donald Trump? Is he just a strong man, or is it something deeper that they're obsessed with? And I'm looking forward to Reverend Neighbors getting here, because we are going to talk about that. Because one of the things that I talked about with him when I asked him to come on today and sort of fill in for the role that I wanted Bishop Tolton to come back in so we could dig a little deeper from Tuesday's show, was the ideology behind everything that is going on that took shape initially, where we could see it plainly during President Obama's administration with Mitch McConnell, who wanted nothing more than to make Barack Obama a one-term president. And then on into the 2016 race, and during the first administration of the Trump era, if we want to call it that.
I like the outside end. By the time we got to Thursday with Jose Matthews and Dr. Da Silva, we came from the outside in, how the rest of the world actually perceives American politics, what Trump's announcement about tariffs actually mean, and what they could do or could not do, and how America is being perceived around the world. And so to help us kind of establish another data point, Jose Matthews and Dr. Da Silva on Thought-Provoking Thursdays, with a cherry on top, Dr. Johnny Mack, help add some tremendous perspective to our own domestic struggle.
I mean, I think that we do have to take these two shows separately on Wednesday. And I felt that way about every segment this week. It was just really a powerful week. I encourage everyone who is with us today, if you didn't hear all of the shows or any one of the shows, there was just nothing but power there. But worldwide with Jose Matthews and Professor Da Silva really are sometimes disheartening for me, because I always care, though it doesn't dictate all of my actions, but I do care about what people think. I care about standing. And when you look at what the world, I mean, because we've always tried, and this is not new for the United States, really. I mean, we have perpetrated some very, very interesting and unsavory things around the United States during the course of our history. However, we have been the promoter of democracy. We have, been the nation to come to the defense of other nations, to feed nations that were not as developed as first world countries. And we have called others to participate in that with us. And so to see us in this day and to hear how other nations are perceiving where we are, the effects of that, the tariffs in particular, are going to have, it's almost like there is a desire to pull the rug from under Americans. If you don't already have, several million or a billion, you're just out. You don't have health care. If you can't pay for your education out of your pocket, forget it. And so I don't know what you're left to do, because when you pull out the economic rug, and we'll talk more about this I am from Gary, Indiana originally. So when you pull out the economic rug from anybody or anything, and there's no foundation there for us to have distribution and buy and exchange things, then you have a full problem, and you are well on your way with no health care, no education, to getting rid of the population.
I am I am concerned about what the economic consequences and ramifications of what Donald Trump is doing to the world, and that's his announcement. And his announcement occurs right around the same time that the Voting Rights Act of 1965 celebrated its 60th anniversary. And when we think, Gina, about how we got from, these global issues all the way down to a brother in a barbershop who says he doesn't want to vote for Kamala Harris, who says she's not black enough, who says she's not woman enough, who says this is who she's married to, she's not one of us. And we look at what the consequences from Africa to India to South America are of what Donald Trump is delivering to the public, including but not limited to challenging the Voting Rights Act of 1965 itself, undermining equal protection of the law and citizenship rights. It just seems that the debate that's taking place up here, some of our brothers down here at this level on the street are not associating the power they have in their vote, whether they understand the global ramifications and consequences of their vote or not. They just simply could never have conceived. Hell, I couldn't conceive it, that the world would be turned upside down in 7 months.
So you said a lot right there. I'm gonna put on my radio voice for this part. You struck me when you said that people had different issues with Kamala Harris, whether it was she was a woman, wasn't black enough. I don't know what that means anymore. And I write in something that I've been working on for a while, that blackness is a state of mind. It is a consciousness. It is a heart and a soul that, while we may honor ourselves because it is necessary to do so, because if we don't honor ourselves, as we can see, the Voting Rights Act, is in trouble. It also has room to welcome everybody else in. It has room to love one another, and that's how our community has always been. And so, when I think about Clarence Thomas, now we're sure about his color, what we can see, but we can't see inside of a person's heart. And this is what Martin Luther King was getting to when he talked about the content of someone's character. I don't know how you turn around and eat your own children as they are being born, but that's certainly, he's the progenitor. He is the one with the ramming rod, the one who's most vocal. And I know that I said perhaps earlier in the week that it's amazing, or maybe last week, it's amazing how people think that they can be part of something that is so evil, to use the word that everyone has finally gotten to, good versus evil. It's amazing to see this, how someone could be so evil and not realize that the same measure that they put against someone else will be measured to them.
Here's my thinking. Hulsey Matthews brought up the idea that so much of the modern economy and future economy is going to be dominated by AI. But to the founding fathers and to their genius, government of, for, and by the people, according to Abraham Lincoln, was not to perish from the face of the earth. Not government of, for, and by electronic devices, computers, robots that might be picking tomatoes and apples and corn one day, but by people. And as Gandhi said, we have enough resources in the world to take care of every person's need. What we do not have in the world is the capacity to provide for a few people and their greed. In fact, many people will go hungry. Many people will starve. Many people will be without health care. Many people will be without doctors and basic means of subsistence, unless we are willing to recognize that the idea that we are governed as people and not as corporations or computers or AI will be a factor in whether or not the American experiment moves forward, or whether or not we're looking at the end of it.
I think that almost brings me to the Thursday weekly show with Johnny Mack, The World House. And when you think about what we discussed on Thursday between these two shows. It really is the worldwide human family that we're discussing here. And I think that if we look at it through the lens of Gaza, then I don't know why anyone wouldn't think that if they would do that in front of America, and I mean, I think this is what it took in the 60s as well, was to allow the world to see what was going on in the United States as far as the civil rights movement was concerned. But if they would do that, then and they would do what has been done and is continuing to be done in Gaza, then I don't know that there's hope for humanity, because that is prefaced, it is founded and perpetuated in a heart that is not soft, especially when you say that we have the capacity to feed everyone. It takes sharing. It takes the notion of, I have enough cars, I have enough food, I can provide for me, my family down the street, and my family around the corner, and in another state, or even some friends along the way. So, really, this does get to some things that are of biblical proportion, in that there is a battle that wages for our very souls.
I'm deeply concerned about that. And that brings us right to, how do we live together in the World House and Johnny Mac? Gina?
Yeah, in this last couple of minutes, I think that Johnny Mac, every week that he comes on, I am so very moved by our conversations. And I find myself typing it. We have a chat, and I always putting all these things in the chat. And yesterday, one of the things that I said in the chat while Johnny was on was that John Quincy Adams, as he put forth the commandments as the idea of, from kindergarten, this is how you train. This is part of the education that we get, along with ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, is how we treat one another. And Adams says that the civil and moral code are founded in a base for any society. This is, don't steal, don't lie, don't cheat, don't bear false witness against your neighbor. If you don't believe and you don't read a Bible, you can extract the first 5 of the 10 commandments, and the second 5 have strictly to do with how you live with one another. So from kindergarten, that's a playground ethic, without calling it a biblical command.
There has to be some foundation laid here. And the architects actually believe they were laying that foundation in some kind of truth. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward, more with Gina Towns and Reverend Neighbors.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Tammy Eswick with BIN News Now. We start in Texas, where the Attorney General Ken Paxton is trying to push Illinois officials to help him get Democrats to come back to Texas and vote on proposed maps that could flip districts in Houston, Austin, and Dallas-Fort Worth.
Hold them in contempt, and if they refuse to come, hopefully put them in jail.
Tomorrow, Chicago's South Side will host its 96th annual Bud Billiken Parade. It's the largest African-American procession in the country. The Grand Marshal this year is Chicago PD star and Harvey native LaRoyce Hawkins. Finally, Black actor Jussie Smollett is returning to TV as a celebrity contestant on the new Fox competition show, Special Forces: World's Toughest Test. Smollett was a co-star on the Fox series Empire. He was accused of staging a hate crime attack against himself. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Ignite your afternoons at Waba Grill's $5 happy hour with our 5-piece pork veggie dumplings and a value-sized premium one beverage drink, like our tangy passion fruit lemonade. Enjoy $5 happy hour weekdays after 3 p.m. only at Waba Grill.
Spending 2 hours staring at the back of someone's bumper isn't the best way to end your day. So Jack in the Box is giving you a bonus with their new Bonus Jack Combo. Fries, a drink, and a burger with your choice of 1, 2, or 3 patties, starting at just $4.49. Get so much more.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The LA Sparks' impressive turnaround in the WNBA continues. They beat the Connecticut Sun Thursday night 102-91, 21 points for Derica Hamby. The Sparks are 8-1 in their last 9 games to improve to 14-15. The LSU women's basketball program is showing some love for HBCU teams. The Southeastern Conference powerhouse has 4 HBCU opponents on their schedule this season: Langston University, Alcorn State, Morgan State, and Alabama State. Interesting development in the NFL regarding black quarterbacks. For the first time in NFL history, all 4 teams in the NFC East Division have a black starting quarterback. Dak Prescott with the Dallas Cowboys, Jalen Hurts with the Philadelphia Eagles, Jaden Daniels of Magic Johnson's Washington Commanders, and Russell Wilson with the New York Giants. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
It's never too early to start talking about money in realistic ways with your kids. JP Morgan Chase navigates how to educate your kids now about creating long-lasting, healthy money habits. Whether your kids are in elementary school, high school, or college, now is a great time to start a conversation about ways to create healthy money habits as they grow, ultimately benefiting their financial future. Talking about money in a realistic way to support your kids' lifestyle and dreams, your first banking account geared towards high school or college. It's never too early. Explaining the basics, what you earn and what you spend, building financial confidence starts with getting organized. Learning and practicing vital money skills now will stay with them for life. Tools they will have to stay on top of their finances and achieve their goals. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40 and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-729-7070. That's 1-800-729-7070. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. That's 1-800-729-7070. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Fat Meat Fridays, where we engage in reflectivity with none other than Gina Towns. Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse Jackson Jr. Fat Meat Friday means that there's some grease in our skillet for us to cook our meat. And hopefully before you put the meat in, you will have cut off some of the fat. So you got a lean piece of meat.
Gina, let me ask you a question. On Thursday, Johnny Mack talked about the role that we play in bending the arc of justice, that the arc doesn't bend on its own. It's either a long arc, it's a short arc, or if we put some weight on it and pull, that's the movement of social justice, to bend the arc in the direction of social justice, of a social framework. Johnny called it an edifice that Dr. King was most concerned about, challenging the triple evils of poverty, militarism, and racism. Your thoughts on our role in bending the arc itself?
One thing that I thought about when you guys engaged in that part of your discussion, I imagined the arc of justice being like a tug of war game. And I always hated tug of war because people put me in the front because I was small, right? I want to be one of those people that's anchoring the back.
Yeah.
And pulling. But I suppose that the person in the front needs to have that same grip and have to look the opposition in the face, eye to eye, stand toe to toe and pull and even shout a cry that's something like marching around Jericho, if you will. But the thing is that once you lose your footing, and you have the arc bent to a certain degree, just like in the tug of war, and you get pulled forward, you have to put some extra people on the back end of that rope. You have to put some more weight and pull the arc of the justice and bend it some more. And so in this day, that's what we are called to, because what we do have, and I was saying this before we left for the break, we have an opportunity. This is an opportunity for a reformation of faith. It is an opportunity for people to come together. This is not without sacrifice. It's probably not without bloodshed. It's probably not without imprisonment. There will be a lot of pain, but of course, as much as we like to talk about losing weight and getting in the gym and getting in shape, there is no gain without the pain, and there will be some tears, and that will water our souls and water the seeds that have been planted in a still very young nation towards some more progress.
You're listening to Fat Meat Fridays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. In this hour, Reverend Dr. Michael C.R. Neighbors, who is the senior pastor of the historic Second Baptist Church, Evanston, Illinois. The 140-year-old church is one of the oldest African-American congregations on the North Shore. Since arriving at Second Baptist, Dr. Neighbors has sought to continue leading the church in its historical role as a trumpeter for Christ and as a social justice advocate in Evanston and Metro Chicago. But even more importantly, I want everyone to understand that when you take up the ministry of Jesus of Nazareth, a whole planet and the entire universe fall within the dominion of what you have to say and what you have to do. Dr. Neighbors, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson. I'm delighted and pleased to be here. Thank you.
Dr. Neighbors, please just call me Jesse. Jesse, Dr. Neighbors. I'm Gina. Dr. Neighbors is here.
He sure is, and I thank him so very much. I would like to just share our conversation because I had asked Bishop Tolton, as I've been trying to do every week, is invite somebody who was on during the week who really fascinated me, and I believe everyone who was within earshot. But Bishop Tolton had to attend to his mother today, and I thought, who else could really handle this? And then I thought, I've heard a whole lot about this rabble-rousing, this justice minister, this Jesus follower, who is not only faith savvy, and is not only teaching people to read a scripture, go home and be happy for a day until you fall down off that spiritual mountain, but also to put that faith in action. And I thought about Reverend Neighbors, and he was kind enough to come on to pick up on the conversation that we were having with Bishop Tolton, specifically about the history of the MAGA movement, the biblical history, because it's so important to understand the ideology that you're standing up against so that you can strategically plan what you're going to do. So welcome, Reverend Neighbors, and thank you so much for answering the call.
Thank you very much, Gina.
Dr. Neighbors, we have about 3 minutes before we come forward. You're going to be with us for the next hour and 15 minutes, for which we're extremely grateful. But if I had to just get this conversation started, I would begin by saying, Dr. Neighbors, in this 3.5 minutes, the world is all messed up.
Yes, it is indeed. The world is messed up, and the world has been messed up for a long time. But I think that we see it is exacerbated now, right in our front rooms. We often look at the world being messed up on the other side of the world, or on the other side of town, or in the deep south, or another area. But now the world is messed up in our own living rooms. And nobody is remiss from the way that our world is falling apart right now. It is affecting everybody in so many different ways. But those who are the least and the lowest, those who are left out and unlucky, those who are suffering the most and have been part of the marginal and oppressed people in this country for so long, are indeed the ones who are suffering the most. And I think that it was said the best when you all talked about this classic tug of war kind of metaphor. It's absolutely true. We are engaged in a battle right now, Jesse and Gina, and it is a battle that is going to include significant sacrifice, significant suffering, and I think already to the point of death. And I think that what we have is a battle that is approaching us on so many fronts that we're going to have more than just one general. We're going to have more than one colonel or more than one soldier. We're going to have masses of people that are experts in certain areas that are fighting the barrage of injustice that is coming our way in so many different directions.
Dr. Neighbors, let me ask you this question. We have about 1 minute and 15 seconds before we come forward. My father in 1984 and 1988 talked about a rainbow coalition. It seems to me increasingly that we are heading in the direction of a painbow coalition, and that we might be organizing people in the future, not around race, but around their suffering. Your thoughts, Dr. Neighbors?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think that your dad was definitely a trendsetter and way ahead of his time when he talked about a rainbow coalition. I do believe that the issues that are affecting Black and brown people now historically is a tragedy. But at the same time, I believe that the way that we're going to be able to address these issues is through a broad coalition that is filled with diversity and inclusivity, folks of every race, of every ethnicity, of every religion and faith, every background. We've got to prepare for that. And your dad laid the groundwork so many years ago for it to happen.
Our guest in this hour is Reverend Dr. Michael C.R. Neighbors, Senior Pastor of the historic Second Baptist Church in Evanston, Illinois. Dr. Neighbors teaches homiletics and qualitative research and theological writing at Garrett Evangelical Theological Seminary in Evanston, Illinois. He is our guest on Fat Meat Fridays, hosted by none other than Gina Towns on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, more with Gina Towns and Dr. Neighbors.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Sometimes an identity threat is a ring of professional hackers. And sometimes it's an overworked accountant who forgot to encrypt their connection while sending bank details.
I need a coffee.
And you need LifeLock because your info is in endless places. It only takes one mistake to expose you to identity theft. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at lifelock.com. Terms apply.
Let's go! You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, and COVID-19. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and help strengthen your immune response. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Schedule in minutes at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
But
Become a U.S. citizen with the help of the Los Angeles Public Library. Get free and confidential information on immigration and citizenship. Visit lapl.org/NAI to find your nearest library or call us at 213-228-7390. That's lapl.org/NAI or 213-228-7390 and start your path to becoming a U.S. citizen with the help of the Los Angeles Public Library. Call 213-228-7390 or visit lapl.org/NAI.
Nearly 7 million Americans aged 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's disease or AD. But did you know that Black adults aged 65 and older are twice as likely as white adults to develop AD? You may be able to reduce your risk by managing conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure, being physically active, eating healthy, and exercising your mind. To learn more about AD, the importance of early diagnosis and intervention, and a potential treatment option, visit treatalzearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com. This message is brought to you by AZI.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project. Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail, because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
See website for details. Bills Happen is not a lender and does not make credit decisions. Hey, bills happen. So when you need extra cash fast, go to billshappen.com. Have you been turned down? Are your credit cards maxed out? Do you have bad credit? Go to billshappen.com. All you need is a job and a checking account. You can find a lender and get up to $5,000 cash as early as tomorrow at billshappen.com. Billshappen.com is the smart way to get a personal lender now. So if you need extra money for car repairs, medical bills, family emergencies, whatever you need cash for, go to billshappen.com and you can get the money you need as soon as the next day, up to $5,000. At billshappen.com, our process is safe, secure, and all online. No one to deal with in person. And Bills Happen does not charge you any fees to use our service. It's easy. When you need a lender, just remember, when bills happen, go to billshappen.com. Billshappen.com for the cash you need now. Billshappen.com.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is Fat Meat Fridays with none other than Gina Towns, where we engage in a roundup of all of our weekly shows and thinking, and she calls it Fat Meat Fridays, where we engage in reflectivity. Our very special guest in this hour is Dr. Neighbors, who earned an undergraduate degree in English and creative writing at Western Michigan University in Kalamazoo, Michigan. His Master's of Divinity degree with an emphasis on systematic theology and a Master of Theology with an emphasis in ethics at Princeton Theological Seminary in Princeton, New Jersey, and the Doctor of Ministry degree focusing on African American preaching at the United Theological Seminary in Dayton, Ohio. Wow, Gina, you guys are alumni of the same university, Princeton Theological Seminary. Why don't we start there?
Well, okay, we can start there. And Actually, I'm glad I didn't have him as an instructor because I struggled enough trying to be grown and online. But certainly I'm very, very grateful to have had the opportunity to be a part of their inaugural cohort on social justice and theology. So at any rate, Jesse Jackson Jr., he said something very important that we talked about during that break, and that was that this struggle is going to require multiple people, generals and officers, that will lead along the way. And nothing is more true. And it reminds me of Tiba's show earlier in the week when he says, unfortunately, we always look for one person to be the savior when we already have a savior, if you believe that. And there are some of our brothers and sisters, who are more Old Testament based, believe Jesus is a prophet and not the coming savior, which leads us to part of the discussion that I wanted Reverend Neighbors to have with us. But I'd like to save that part for the next hour because I think that requires us to have some time without a break. But I want to make sure that we stick a pin in that and come back to the multiple people, multiple generals and officers. I wanted to share with you that I think sometimes people don't believe what we're seeing.
Dr. Neighbors, it's a multi-pronged attack on Second Reconstruction. I mean, everything that we have seen that has been fought for since Brown versus the Board of Education, you just don't wake up and attack it all. But clearly, this is a plan that has been in development for quite some time.
You are absolutely right. And Jesse and Gina, I think I can go all the way back, or we can go all the way back to the original Reconstruction. The first 10 years after the Civil War was probably the most progressive decade that Black people ever had. And that was coming straight out of slavery without the ability for most to read and write. They were able to build towns. They were able to construct thousands of houses of worship, businesses. They were able to produce insurance companies, funeral homes, all of that within a 10-year period. And when whites, led by racism, saw the progress of Blacks and saw the economic development that Blacks were being able to build, that's when you had the birth of the Ku Klux Klan. That's when you had the birth of the White Citizens Council and other virulent racist attacks on Blacks, so that towns will burn, people were prevented from the right to be able to vote. That was one of the big things in Reconstruction as well. So to me, I think we see that happening all over again. This whole idea of populism, this whole idea of Trump and the Republican Party, I think at the base of it is this very, very negative racism where they do not want to see Black and brown people progress and develop. And the bottom line of that is we are growing in such numbers that they're frightened to death that soon enough we will be able to take our power as a majority to the polls and elect whoever we want to elect at any level.
Dr. Neighbors, all of that is true, and it's going to be taking place at a time when the American people are going to find themselves suffering, whether it is the closing of primary care facilities in large urban areas, hospitals that, because of racial segregation, largely provide services for African Americans. And by providing those services, especially services for the indigent, Medicaid has been slashed by the big, ugly bill. What we have in common is that rural communities who receive Medicaid, that their dialysis as well as community health centers are going to be closed as well. They're wearing red hats. Some of us are wearing blue hats. And there is something that we have in common, the pain that we are going to share if we're not already sharing it in the present.
Yeah, I think, Jesse, that you're talking from really prophetic lenses, because right now we see that that is on the ground and it is materializing. We know that it's going to happen. All of the indicators are there. All of the professionals are saying this is about to happen when these cuts really begin to take place and to hit home. However, I think that because of the nature of the beast, when I talk about the nature of the beast, I'm talking about racism. and the depth of the racism, the evil nature of racism. There is a malevolence in racism that is so historically rooted to the very genesis of our nation that we can only describe it as racist. Those folks who are wearing red hats are not going to recognize they're in trouble until their people start dying. When their people start dying at the same rate that everybody else you mentioned is dying, in urban areas where congregate care centers are closing down, where we don't have dialysis centers anymore, when that begins to happen, they're going to wake up and recognize, okay, we need to figure something out. And I believe that the way that's going to happen is through all of the progressive folks that we have in the Black community right now, especially who are in houses of worship, who are religious, whatever the denomination.
You know, I know that we have about 2 minutes before we come forward. Gina, your thoughts?
Why is it? And this is almost a rhetorical question, but I'm gonna put it out there because this is one of those questions. Until you have conversations with people who don't look like you, you don't know some of the colloquialisms or those phrases that kind of permeate our. Why is it that people don't trust that we would never, as a community, perpetuate the kind of violence and the kind of racism that has been perpetuated on us? It's a fear, I understand, but throughout our time here in the United States, we have never been. And it's just, I don't even believe it's a spirit that we hold as a people to be vengeful. And in fact, the entire civil rights movement was founded upon, what Walter Fluker has spent his life researching, and King, who comes from the whole school of nonviolence between Gandhi and Howard Thurman.
Let me just say, Gina, because we have about 1 minute before we come forward, Dr. Neighbors, when we come forward is the terminology that we use to announce our breaks here on KBLA Talk 1580. It does seem to me that when you invoke the name Dr. Howard Fluker, we're obviously invoking Jesus and the disinherited, right? We're obviously invoking, what would the Gospels say and what would Jesus say to a man, to a people, to a nation, to diverse communities in profound disagreement, to a people whose backs are against the wall. And that's exactly what we have here, whether it's the LGBTQ community or the African-American community that has historically fought for civil rights, whether it is women who are fighting for economic inclusion in the broader society, whether it is immigrants fighting to have their basic human rights dignified and not placed in cages and sent to some kind of alligator Alcatraz. This is a shameful moment in American history. We are in it, but we came to it over time. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, Dr. Neighbors is going to help walk us through that history on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Tammy Eswick with BIN News Now. We start in Texas, where the Attorney General Ken Paxton is trying to push Illinois officials to help him get Democrats to come back to Texas and vote on proposed maps that could flip districts in Houston, Austin, and Dallas-Fort Worth.
Hold them in contempt, and if they refuse to come, hopefully put them in jail.
Tomorrow, Chicago's South Side will host its 96th annual Bud Billiken Parade. It's the largest African-American procession in the country. The Grand Marshal this year is Chicago PD star and Harvey native LaRoyce Hawkins. Finally, Black actor Jussie Smollett is returning to TV as a celebrity contestant on the new Fox competition show, Special Forces: World's Toughest Test. Smollett was a co-star on the Fox series Empire. He was accused of staging a hate crime attack against himself. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Ignite your afternoons at Waba Grill's $5 happy hour with our 5-piece pork veggie dumplings and a value-sized premium one beverage drink, like our tangy passion fruit lemonade. Enjoy $5 happy hour weekdays after 3 p.m. Only at Waba Grill.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The LA Sparks impressive turnaround in the WNBA continues. They beat the Connecticut Sun Thursday night 102-91, 21 points for Derica Hamby. The Sparks are 8-1 in their last 9 games to improve to 14-15. The LSU women's basketball program is showing some love for HBCU teams. The Southeastern Conference powerhouse has 4 HBCU opponents on their schedule this season: Langston University, Alcorn State, Morgan State, and Alabama State. Interesting development in the NFL regarding black quarterbacks. For the first time in NFL history, all 4 teams in the NFC East Division have a black starting quarterback. Dak Prescott with the Dallas Cowboys, Jalen Hurts with the Philadelphia Eagles, Jaden Daniels of Magic Johnson's Washington Commanders, and Russell Wilson with the New York Giants. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we aim to foster enlightening, sustainable, restorative dialogue, and we welcome unapologetically progressive viewpoints that empower fellow citizens. We are now accepting submissions for KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorials like this one.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley Show conversation with James Farr. James said something that caught me off guard. Black Altadena is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at kbla1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Fat Meat Fridays, where our regular host is Gina Towns. Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse Jackson Jr.
And our very special guest is Dr. Neighbors. Dr. Neighbors, welcome forward to the show.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Thank you.
Gina and I were just talking during the break about this idea that we are in time. That is, we are in the present, and we are responsible for all of our activity, social justice and otherwise, in the present, bending the arc of the universe in the direction of justice, which Dr. Johnny Mack talked about on our program yesterday. But Johnny Mack also said that we are in time because we are over time. And that is, from the beginning of time, it's about this moment. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Lest our feet stray from the place of our God where we met thee, shadowed beneath thy hand. That journey, Dr. Neighbors, it matters to where we are in the present.
It absolutely does, Jesse. And when you put it in that context, there is no other time that is more important than now. Just 2 weeks ago, I was in Charlotte, North Carolina for the annual session of the NAACP. And of course, their theme for this year has been the urgency of now. So there is never been a more important time for us as a people than to not only reflect upon where we are, but to engage in a plan of action to do something to take us where not only we need to be, but where God intends for us to be as well. I think the only way that we can really take advantage of this essence of the now, of being where we are right now, is if we do know something about the past. We don't dwell in the past, but I believe that it was Malcolm who said that history is the greatest teacher. And when we are able to focus upon our past and to recognize what we've been through and how we've been able to overcome, I think that cements us with the necessary strength and courage to be able to go along with the faith that we've already had, that come what may, we're able to handle it. But it is, again, going to be with sacrifice, with suffering, and I'm sure it's going to be with death. I hate to say that, but it just looks like it's moving in that direction.
Gee, I Dr. Neighbors, I just think, hit a triple, if not a home run. I mean, all runners on base, and he brought us home.
Absolutely. I was thinking while he was talking about the things that must be done, and then his earlier comment about all the generals that are needed, and then my question about why is it that people think by engaging other people that don't look like them, sharing with one another, why is that so threatening, and why can't we trust each other's motives? And certainly there has been a lot perpetuated with the doctrine of discovery, as people traveled around the world with some sort of edict that we're going to control and dominate everyone. And that has a base, and I want to get to that when we come to our longer segment after the next break, Dr. Neighbors. But I am reminded that at the bottom of racism and at the bottom of some of what we've been talking about here is fear of the unknown, and certainly some of the other 7 deadly sins. But I tend to think about, we mentioned
Gina,
Supreme Court
Gina
Justice.
Aubrey Hendricks said that we need to call this demon by its name. This is evil.
It's evil.
This is evil.
And evil sits on the Supreme Court too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mentioned that, there's no mistaking what Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas looks like, feels like, but don't taste like any fat meat that we've ever had. So I also take into consideration that we are a nation who just recently, in the past, say 20 years, removed the last couple of states who had interracial marriage on the books as being illegal. So that is also one of the foundations that is driving this whole thing when we talk about the fact that there is a browning of America. That is part of the issue as well, and particularly with generations that fall, after us, the millennial Gen Z generations, who want just people to live and love, and without some barriers around what that really looks like, it is very threatening for people. But at the end of the day, there's that race that sits right there with marriage. I remember, and I'll close up with this here. I remember when Soledad O'Brien did a CNN special called The Browning of America. And I promise you that she was not on or employed by CNN much longer after that.
Dr. Neighbors?
Yeah, Gina, I think you're spot on. And I think that fear is one of the driving indicators behind racism. I don't want to sound like I am much of a fatalist, but I think along with that fear, there is a sort of healthy dose of hatred that exists as well. And, I want to be able to say that the folks who dislike us for one reason or another, that is rooted in fear. But I think that along with that, we would be blind if we did not also recognize there's just a real hatred that seems to be passing down from generation to generation. And again, when you look at it historically, from the arrival of our people in 1619, the way that we were treated, as a Christian, you all know that it was against the law for slave owners to even baptize their slaves who were Africans for 120 years before that changed. So look at how our folks have been treated, and look at how we participated in everything to help this country to be everything that it can be. Over 5,000 Black men participated in the American Revolution as soldiers, and yet in 1793, they passed the first Fugitive Slave Act, which was absolutely horrendous. We go to 1812 and you have at least two infantries that were filled with colored soldiers that fought in the War of 1812, and especially in the Battle of New Orleans that ended the war in 1815. So, I'm sorry, you just go on and on, but this hatred.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, we're going to walk through this history with Dr. Neighbors. Bring your notepad, bring your lunch. We are going to get this done in this hour. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
You hear that? That's Mike sleeping soundly on a Sunday night. That's because Mike was smart this time. He took ZQL Ultra to fall asleep fast, stay asleep longer, and get the deeply restorative sleep he needs. So now he wakes up refreshed and ready to conquer Mondays.
Let's do this Monday.
ZQL Ultra. Not for colds, just for sleep. Really great sleep. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Let's go! You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You've still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, and COVID-19. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and help strengthen your immune response. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Schedule in minutes at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-550-9651. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-550-9651. That's 800-550-9651. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is Fat Meat Fridays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show with none other than our host, Gina Towns. Gina, our very special guest, is Dr. Neighbors. Dr. Neighbors, just before the break, was walking us through the history that included 2 black regiments and the history of African Americans and our contribution before the Republic of September 17th, 1787, before the Bill of Rights, by definition before the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, before the 19th Amendment, allowing women the right to vote, and certainly before the 26th Amendment. And all of these amendments, Gina, all of these movements, Brown versus the Board of Education, Emmett Till, Rosa Parks, I Have a Dream speech, the 1964 Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act of 65, Public Accommodations Legislation, 1968. All of it is led after Loving versus Virginia to the idea of the Browning of America and the Soledad O'Brien presentation. Gina?
On to Claudine Gay not being at Harvard for more than 6 months.
60 days. Was it 6 months or 60 days?
Something in the background that we don't know that occurs because with Soledad, and I would say that I'm going to take some time to go back and watch that if I can find it on YouTube. She had permission, obviously, at CNN to do this report because she traveled. And that means that there was money spent on this, but somebody saw it and did not like it. And so therefore, there are things that occurred on to Claudine Gay. I mean, and there's certainly been enough instances in the middle that we could point over and over again to this idea that there's something we don't want to talk about. It's evil. It's based in race, whether it is interracial marriage, whether it is public education that's interracial. I mean, this just does not stop. So, one of the things that I talked about, I'm so happy, Reverend Neighbors, that we're finally to this 15-minute segment because we got a minute. And I really want you to help us with what Bishop Tolton talked about on Tuesday and take us a little bit deeper into the ideology and the history of MAGA and where some of this comes from, whether it's Esau and Jacob, whether it's Noah and his sons, wherever it is that we need to start. Can you take us there?
My goodness. Oh. Yeah, so Gina, you touched on so much. I mean, if you go to the historical perspective about racism biblically, you just touched on a couple of things. You go to the Old Testament and the story about Noah being drunk and cursing his son, and then for some crazy reason, blacks become the inheritor of that curse. That is a part of the racism that actually originated under the umbrella of our Judeo-Christian heritage, and especially Christianity. Then you have other pieces in the Bible that sort of, support that as well. The New Testament talks about Paul telling slaves that they needed to obey their master, for this is right in the Lord. So what you did, you had whites who picked up these little pieces of the text, forgetting about all of the other pieces in the text that are a part of our Christian faith. That is the Exodus, and that is the whole idea of Jesus and his inaugural sermon, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach to the poor, to set at liberty those who are oppressed. All of that spoke to the nature of the goodness and graciousness of God, which is found in Acts 17 and 26, my favorite text of all time. And that is, with just one blood, God has made all nations to dwell on the face of the earth. So that's a sort of biblical way that that racism became rooted into Christianity. But the thing that confuses me, and I hope that you all might be able to help me out, is that very early on, there were groups of white Christians who took exception to that kind of teaching. So when we talk about the need to build up allies, when we think about the abolition movement that began as late as the late 1700s, it was the Quakers, it was the Amish, the Mennonites, these very, very white Christian groups that decided that the abolition of slavery was important because that was a part of what their faith experience was. They became real leaders and participants in the abolition movement. But as you know, shortly after the Civil War, the Quakers went their way, the Amish went their way, the Mennonites went their way. Why do we not have more Black folks who are Quakers, who are Mennonites, who are Amish? Because they gave so much over the period of at least 50 or 60 years. And there's a reason for that. And that's because of the backlash of the racist who decided that they would say to the Quakers and to the Mennonites and to the Amish, you did what you had to do, but it's going to stop right now. And I believe that the Quakers went their way and Black folks went their way. It's just devastating.
I think that's right. I've never heard it quite like that, but I think that's exactly right. They simply got outnumbered, and their theology was as suppressed as any other theological position that might end up in the public square for argument and debate. It's just not a debate they could win anymore. And I've argued, Dr. Neighbors, that racism, when I do the etymology of the term, is a relatively new term in the English language. I mean, you don't see Frederick Douglass using it. You don't see W.E.B. Du Bois per se talking about it, right? You see it really as a word come into existence describing what Jewish people are experiencing in Europe in the 1930s, maybe the late 1920s.
Yeah.
Of course, we apply it to ourselves, but almost every Black leader and progressive leader before then recognized that this whole idea of hiding your arguments behind the states, or hiding them behind property, or hiding them behind local control, that you could paint over the problem, but you were literally targeting Black people who found themselves in a condition of servitude, to justify your legal position without any moral values or any plumb line for what constitutes human dignity or ethics. And we've applied that term in 2025, 2026, all the way backwards to 1619, when something else is taking place before the term even comes into existence. Racism does not truly capture what it means to be Black in America. I'm going to conclude on this, G, and that is this. The best way I can say this is the one God that we all serve throughout history did not care for slavery through the Exodus experience. Let my people go, let my people go, let my people go. Signs and wonders, right? But here, the same God isn't dealing with pharaonic slavery. Here we're dealing with constitutional slavery. And the only way out of the constitutional slave system is by emancipation by 13th, 14th, 15th, 26th, 19th, 26th amendments to a constitution. Our process out of slavery, no less significant than the ones that Jewish people went through in the Exodus, except for our Exodus story, our Passover, our Seder experience, Dr. Neighbors, is just different.
Yeah. Jesse, I absolutely love that. And I think you're spot on. And I think the way to capture the brilliance of what you're saying so that the masses of our people might be able to, apply that to their own lives is trying to help them to discover their own narrative. Everything that you just touched on has a personal kind of relational influence upon every single Black family. And one of the things that racism has done and the mistreatment of Black and brown people is that it has denied us an opportunity to be aware of our own history. If you're not aware of your own history, you're not aware of the importance of narrative. And to me, I think narrative is absolutely critical. So last year I had an opportunity to go on a sabbatical. Thank God for that. And I was away for about 5 months, man. And it was just, I've been in ministry for a long time. So I decided to, trace my own family history. And I did in terms of the North American continent. So I just want to quickly share with you what I was able to discover. I went back 7 generations. I have a great grandfather who was William Ampey, was born in Dinwiddie County in Virginia. He had a son named James, and James was born in Dinwiddie in 1793. He left and went to Guilford County, North Carolina. He met a wife named Dicey. These are my great-great-great-grandparents. They married in 1823 in North Carolina. And because of the Fugitive Slave Act, they had to leave there and go to southern Indiana. And they landed in Richmond, Indiana, where they had 13 children. And one of them was my great-great-grandfather, Isom Ampey. They had 4 sons that fought in the Civil War. 2 of them were in the 54th Regiment out of Massachusetts, the movie Glory. One of them was killed, Thomas, and Isom survived. When that was over, he and the family left Indiana and settled in Michigan. That's where my great-grandmother was born, my grandmother, my mom, and myself. So when you think about that history, think about the loss, man. Think about the land that they had to leave in Virginia, the land that they had to leave in North Carolina, the land that they had to leave in southern Indiana. They had to literally run out of southern Indiana because I have a great uncle that was lynched in 1885 because he was helping other Blacks from North Carolina make their way to Indiana. And the Indiana legislature was so racist that they didn't want another single Black to come in to their state. So when you think about all of that and make it real, and you share that story, then you have the ear of everybody that is at least halfway human. And what we did in Evanston with that kind of story is, you probably know, Jesse, we started the first paid reparations program in the history of the United States in 2019. In 2025, right now, we have $25 million that has been set aside for Black people who have been victims of racism in the Evanston community. What is not a story that is told is that 16 houses of worship, which were white, decided that they wanted to give to reparations and raised $1 million over a period of 2.5 years for a reparations program in Evanston for Black people suffering because of racism. That is called reparations. And Gina, I think that's why white folks are so afraid of the masses of Black and brown people outnumbering them. Because once we have that number, we don't want to hurt people, don't get me wrong, but we do want justice to prevail. Y'all started this amazing segment on the moral arc of the universe. The moral arc of the universe will bend in the right way when retribution and reparation comes for the masses of people who have suffered. I'm in this not just for me, I'm in it for the millions of people that died, and I happen to know many of them were in my own family over the past 7 generations.
Driving through Dinwiddie, Virginia to Guilford County, North Carolina, from Hampton University to A&T State University will never be the same again, because you added a narrative that Well, let's just say when you drive through Dinwiddie, you need to be doing about 55 miles per hour, because I've flown through there enough to know exactly the route that your family took. That was an amazing story, Dr. Neighbors. Gina?
And then there's Richmond, Indiana, where the home of the Ku Klux Klan was for many years. And so many people don't know that, because Indiana was considered above the Mason-Dixon line in the north. But, growing up in Gary, as I did, I will share with you that there were places outside of Gary around us, which if you want to call them suburbs, you can, but we did not go. We stayed in Gary. And so this is a very interesting thing.
Gina, one other thing. I think J.D. Vance, even at the hour of this broadcast, is up in Indiana right now, trying to convince legislators in Indiana to consider redrawing their states to strengthen Donald Trump's majority in the Congress of the United States, following upon the initiative started in Texas. And so we do not separate our history and the history that Dr. Neighbors has shared with us from the reality that some other people are on the same road.
Yeah.
Our existence took place, our own Jericho Road, right through America. We're beaten, we're bloodied, we're crucified. And in the case of the Neighbors family, there's even a lynching.
Oh, my
Gina?
goodness.
Well, yes. I mean, I had taken some notes. I wanted to get back to Philemon, Reverend Neighbors, and Paul's letter, and the problems that I had while I was in seminary about what I said about what Paul didn't say and blah, blah, blah. In that moment, I was a little bit convicted, because I thought about the framers of the Constitution while you were at that part of the conversation. And so this is going to bring me to this culmination in this conversation. As I have studied it, I see that there were certain of the framers who did not believe in slavery. And slavery had been in existence for 150 years when they began to write the Constitution. And the Adams family never owned the slaves. That's two of the first 6 presidents. Benjamin Franklin sold his. And so I imagine them being at the Constitutional Convention with the Amish, with the Pilgrims, with all of the different sects of people who came from Europe, because they no longer wanted a king who was running the church for centuries. Except there was an economic problem, because slavery had already been in existence. And so in order to buck that, they could not buck it the way that they did. And so later you find Jefferson and Adams in an exchange in a letter about what they had hidden in the Constitution, which Jesse has written a book on, The Finger of God, relating to the presidency from David to the lineage of David to Jesus to the presidency, is what they were. They thought they were the new Israel. That's what they wanted. They wanted to start over again. And so you get people who have a vision, and then people who don't want to carry that vision through because a generation has passed. And when we come back, I'm hoping Jesse will allow us to talk about generations.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. This is Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns. And our very special guest is Dr. Neighbors. Dr. Neighbors, I am so glad that you're with us. When we come forward, we are going to have a continued conversation covering the history that brought us from then to the present. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, more.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Tammy Eswick with BIN News Now. We start in Texas, where the Attorney General Ken Paxton is trying to push Illinois officials to help him get Democrats to come back to Texas and vote on proposed maps that could flip districts in Houston, Austin, and Dallas-Fort Worth.
Hold them in contempt, and if they refuse to come, hopefully put them in jail.
Tomorrow, Chicago's South Side will host its 96th annual Bud Billiken Parade. It's the largest African-American procession in the country. The Grand Marshal this year is Chicago PD star and Harvey native LaRoyce Hawkins. Finally, Black actor Jussie Smollett is returning to TV as a celebrity contestant on the new Fox competition show, Special Forces: World's Toughest Test. Smollett was a co-star on the Fox series Empire. He was accused of staging a hate crime attack against himself. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Ignite your afternoons at Waba Grill's $5 happy hour with our 5-piece pork veggie dumplings and a value-sized premium one beverage drink, like our tangy passion fruit lemonade. Enjoy $5 happy hour weekdays after 3 p.m. Only at Waba Grill.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The LA Sparks impressive turnaround in the WNBA continues. They beat the Connecticut Sun Thursday night 102-91, 21 points for Derica Hamby. The Sparks are 8-1 in their last 9 games to improve to 14-15. The LSU women's basketball program is showing some love for HBCU teams. The Southeastern Conference powerhouse has 4 HBCU opponents on their schedule this season: Langston University, Alcorn State, Morgan State, and Alabama State. Interesting development in the NFL regarding black quarterbacks. For the first time in NFL history, all 4 teams in the NFC East Division have a black starting quarterback. Dak Prescott with the Dallas Cowboys, Jalen Hurts with the Philadelphia Eagles, Jayden Daniels of Magic Johnson's Washington Commanders, and Russell Wilson with the New York Giants. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., inviting you to join me weekdays at 12 noon, right after Tavis Smiley, here on KBLA Talk 1580. As a law school graduate and a theologian with a firm grasp of our body politic given almost 2 decades in Congress, my show is the fresh new home of an authentic, uncompromised quest for transformation and salvation, both personal and collectively, as I vigorously interrogate the theological and symbolic meanings embedded in our society. I promise to leverage my knowledge of history, theology, and both international and domestic issues to imagine an inclusive vision for the future, which I hope will inspire all of us to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as a given, not just an aspiration. So join me weekdays at 12 noon, right after Tavis Smiley, for 2 hours of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
You have cancer. The 3 words no one wants to hear. Of the cancers that impact our community, lung cancer is the most dangerous. More people succumb to lung cancer than colon, breast, and prostate combined. Black men are 12% more likely to develop lung cancer, and cases for Black women are rising. Early detection and comprehensive treatment is the best way to beat this dreaded disease. Providence is a research leader in multi-cancer early detection, offering blood tests that identify fast-spreading cancers that don't show symptoms in early stages. The Providence Los Angeles Integrated Network Cancer Program determines best protocols for each patient, interacting with specialists who share experiences, perspectives, and new findings specific to each case. With over 1,000 board-certified physicians, including top oncologists, surgeons, radiologists, and nurse specialists, Providence delivers whole-person care that understands your culture, values, preferences, and priorities. So, if you hear the words, "you have cancer," all you need is faith and providence.org/cancer.
KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest in this hour is none other than Dr. Neighbors. Dr. Neighbors, I am so glad that you are here with us. Dr. Neighbors is the senior pastor of the historic Second Baptist Church in Evanston, Illinois. The 140-plus-year-old church is one of the oldest African-American congregations on the North Shore. Since arriving at Second Baptist, Dr. Neighbors has sought to continue leading the church in its historic role as trumpeter for Christ and as a social justice advocate in Evanston and metropolitan Chicago, and quite frankly, throughout our world. This is Fat Meat Fridays, where our very special host is also Gina Towns. Hey, Gina.
Hey, Jesse, you all started talking about something that's near and dear to my heart now. We are going to have to get back to the beginning and the framers and the loss of what they envisioned towards eternity, the amendments that they gave us as a gift to get there as a theological and chronological progression, like the Old Testament to the New Testament. But then we get to the whole issue of land. So I'm going to put all of this out here for you all to chew on, because Reverend Neighbors, you brought up reparations. And you see, when Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, the next thing to do would have been to give them land in a biblical sense. But he didn't make it to that, and there's a reason for that.
There is a reason for it, Gina. And obviously, you're talking about the 40 acres and a mule promise that was given. And it was specifically a promise that was given by General Sherman when he arrived in Texas and recognized that there were still people who were enslaved even after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1863 that had not gotten to Texas. So that's why we celebrate, as you know, Juneteenth, because it was June 19th. That in 1865 that blacks finally recognized the importance of Emancipation Proclamation. And Sherman took it upon himself as one of the generals in the Union Army to say, we're going to promise 40 acres and a mule. And obviously that did not happen. I do want to share, however, that I don't think that's the first promise of reparations that occurred in the history of Black folks. I think that we can go right back to the American Revolution. And when that revolution was starting, there were many of the colonists who owned slaves, and there were verbal promises that were given to many slaves that if you help us to gain our freedom and to become an independent country, then we will free you. That also is a form of reparations. Well, guess what? That did not happen either. So we have been denied the promise of reparations since the formation of this country in 1776.
I want to take it one step further, Jesse, if you don't mind. Is back to the Old Testament, when you had a servant, the 7 years that you kept an indentured servant. And then when that time was up, even though it didn't quite work out for Jacob, I think it was, in his desire to marry. But nevertheless, after 7 years, you gave whomever had been serving you land and enough to start on their own. It kind of goes back really to some principle. And that's why I wanted to kind of dig into the ideology of MAGA, that's Christian nationalism, if that's, what they want to call themselves. I was really trying to just get to, where are you guys coming from? No semblance of love God and love one another.
Well, I think, I'm sorry, Jesse.
No, I was just going to say that I'm sitting here having a reflection on a reflectivity on what Gina said and what you said, Dr. Neighbors. And I'm going to go outside the box here, right? I hope it doesn't run me off of the radio, but I'm going to go outside the box. I'm trying to think now, if we had 40 acres and a mule, don't get me wrong, I've written a lot of work on reparations. I got it. I'm with it. Brother man, sister girl, I'm with reparations. I got it. But I'm just going outside the box for the purposes of our show. If we had 40 acres and a mule, we would be just as rural and just as red today in the preservation and protective of our rural interests as MAGA is today in the preservation and protection of their rural interests. We would probably have no problem at all with folk crossing the border in Mexico coming to the United States as seasonal workers working on our 40 acres that we don't want to farm anymore. Probably. Because we would be agrarian in our thinking, essentially. But without 40 acres and a mule, we find ourselves overwhelmingly in these major municipalities, far more cosmopolitan than we would have ever been had we not had not only the slave experience, but the sharecropping experience. And all that I see the immigrants, Reverend Neighbors, going through right now is another form of kind of sharecropping, right? I mean, Trump is leaving them alone where they are farming, but he's coming to the urban areas and deporting them on a scale that we haven't seen in the history of the nation. Help me, Dr. Neighbors, reconcile our own desires for 40 acres and a mule and what rural Americans are saying right now when they say we do need farm hands.
Yeah, Jesse, you give a really amazing perspective, one that I hadn't thought about. I thank you for warning us that you're going to go outside of the box. So let me share that. My vantage point is that I think I might slightly disagree in that. Keep in mind that the 40 acres and a mule promise came when the great majority of those who were enslaved were agrarian. What else were we going to give them? That's all they had. That's all that was available. It was land and working on a farm. So we did not have the industry of manufacturing companies that came about. That's going to come within the next 20 or 30 years, but it certainly wasn't at the end of the Civil War. So when I think about the 40 acres and a mule and what our people were able to accomplish even without that, keep in mind that they built places like Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Rosewood. They built towns and cities all over the Deep South. And that was without the 40 acres and a mule. So the great majority of those folk who built those towns and cities were agrarian. They were farmers. Because they didn't have industry. They weren't starting companies or anything like that for mass production. Again, that's going to come later. But that sense of community that exists with that kind of formation of a town, that sense of unity, that sense of being able to work together in unity, that sense of Black folks having their differences, but at the same time being able to come together, as I would say as a preacher, on Sunday morning. It may not have been in the same house of worship. It may have been an AME church. It may have been a Baptist church, a CME church, Methodist church, whatever. But they were able to see that there was a solidarity point, and the solidarity point was in those towns. And that's why, Jesse, I believe that there was a real effort on the part of racists to destroy whatever looked to be visibly successful that Blacks had. They weren't going out and burning down farms. They were going out and burning down what they saw as visible signs of success.
I think that's right. Gina?
I think land in and of itself is tied to economic development and economic generational wealth. And so we can't get around the land. I mean, the first thing that happened off of Ellis Island was you went and got yourself a piece of land.
The same thing they're promising the South Africans, by the way, as soon as they come over here under the they're offering them.
And not only that, there has been a push throughout our country's history when people acquired land. I mean, look at the Native American that's pushed onto a reservation off their land. So what is it with the land? The land produces. It is a mechanism for production. It is a mechanism for trade and economic stability. And so, I just think that land was very important for us to have coming out of slavery, and an opportunity to not sharecrop, so you could pay us 2 cents for our work on your land, that we could have our own land and have a business and participate in America's trade, since it was a capitalistic society.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. I think, Gina, that's a great point. You all probably remember Malcolm would often say that at the basis of every revolution was land. That land was the reason why there's ever been a revolution in the world. And I think that when you talk about what Gina just said, it is the basis for economic development, not only of communities, but of individuals as well. And keep in mind, our nation started as an agrarian society. So land was also very, very important at that time.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is Fat Meat Friday with Gina Towns on KBLA Talk 1580. And our very special guest is Dr. Neighbors. When we come forward, more with Gina Towns and our closing, a word of hope from Dr. Neighbors when we come forward.
station you turn.
Wants to hear. Of the cancers that impact our community, lung cancer is the most dangerous. More people succumb to lung cancer than colon, breast, and prostate combined. Black men are 12% more likely to develop lung cancer, and cases for Black women are rising. Early detection and comprehensive treatment is the best way to beat this dreaded disease. Providence is a research leader in multi-cancer early detection, offering blood tests that identify fast-spreading cancers that don't show symptoms in early stages. The Providence Los Angeles Integrated Network Cancer Program determines best protocols for each patient, interacting with specialists who share experiences, perspectives, and new findings specific to each case. With over 1,000 board-certified physicians, including top oncologists, surgeons, radiologists, and nurse specialists, Providence delivers whole-person care that understands your culture, values, preferences, and priorities. So, if you hear the words, "you have cancer," all you need is faith and providence.org/cancer.
This is Secret Clinical Dominating Extra Stinky Stress Sweat. And this is regular deodorant. Secret Clinical in a heat wave. Oh, what a beautiful day. This is regular deodorant. Ugh, I can't. Secret Clinical with workout sweat. Let's run another marathon. And regular deodorant. How much more? Secret is the GOAT because nothing fights sweat better. Stay fresher under pressure.
Ready to order.
Yes. We're earning unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. So let's just get one of everything.
Everything?
Fire everything. The Capital One Saver card is at table 27 and they're earning unlimited 3% cash back.
Yes, Chef! This is so nice.
Had a feeling you'd want 3% cash back on dessert.
Ooh, tiramisu.
Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Ready to order.
Yes. We're earning unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. So let's just get one of everything.
Everything?
Fire everything. The Capital One Saver card is at table 27 and they're earning unlimited 3% cash back.
Yes, Chef! This is so nice.
Had a feeling you'd want 3% cash back on dessert.
Ooh, tiramisu.
Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. This is Fat Meat Fridays and Reflectivity with Gina Towns. Some of y'all don't believe fat meat is greasy. but it is. It's real greasy. And our very special guest is none other than Dr. Michael C.R. Neighbors, Senior Pastor of the Historic Second Baptist Church in Evanston, Illinois. Gina,
Yes,
Dr. Neighbors has been an extraordinary guest.
absolutely.
I hope we find some more space to drop him in regularly. I mean, he can handle all of the issues. I
Well,
want to talk with him about Gaza. I want to talk about I want to talk about trade. I want to talk about how we're treating each other. But Gina, you want to talk with him about something before we go to his word of hope?
Yes, we left off on land.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to know
When are we gonna get some? When are we gonna get some?
what business was Donald Trump's father, Fred Trump? What business was he in, and what did he leave to Donald Trump?
Real estate, I think, but I think Donald Trump lost it all.
Well,
and how he got back in it, I don't know.
Because we allowed him to file bankruptcy
6 times.
6 times, and then
6 times.
Okay, so I don't want to get off the subject now.
Okay.
But there are just opportunities that we are not afforded. And not only that, I'm just going to finish up on this land part. I mean, it seems like every time something happens, you find when you see regentrification, you see people come in and buy the land. The land just does not sit there. So there's an importance to land. All right. Well, that's all I really have to say. You guys can carry this show on out because I want to fight for my land.
Yeah. Dr. Neighbors, as we prepare to conclude our program, we have about 7 minutes before the show ends at the very top of the hour. And it's been an amazing week. What do you say to people who are experiencing the anxiety, the pressures, and the stress of the various different angles by which our central nervous systems are being challenged at this hour?
Yeah.
There will be suffering in the land. There will be pain in the land. We've felt hope in the days when hope unborn had died.
Yeah.
It just seems like our backs are against the wall. And hopelessness is abounding far more than the idea of hope. Help strengthen, if you don't mind, Pastor, our resilience.
Yeah. So, Jesse, one thing that comes to mind for me is a very familiar gospel song out of the tradition of the African American religious experience, and that is, there's a storm out on the ocean, and it's moving this old way. And then there's that piece that says, if your soul is not anchored in Jesus, you will surely slip away. I want to say that if your soul is not anchored, and I also want to go back to what I've been talking about earlier, if your soul is not anchored in the knowledge of our own history, the knowledge of our people, if our soul is not anchored in the experiences of people that have been able to overcome adversity and to overcome the challenges, then I think we're going to slip away. So we ought to be reminded that at the core of our Blackness is the most determined and resilient kind of faith that gives us strength. And I want every person to know who is dealing with the anxiety that you talked about a moment ago, that they do have that strength. And that strength is a strength to be able to stand, strength to be able to speak, strength to be able to work, strength to be able to love, strength to stop the madness that is occurring in our country right now, no matter what. It is the fierce urgency of now that I talked about in terms of the NAACP mantra for the whole year. It is our own strength that is based upon our narrative and our history. And it is also that strength that is based upon the presence of God. When you put those three together, in my estimation, it equals victory every time. So when we talk about the sacrifice and the suffering and the death, that does not mean that we are without strength. Our strength comes from the power of being able to come together and to rally together, to recognize that in this war that we're in right now, we need allies like we've never needed them before. That's also important. But I also think that what it means is that we have this ability to be able to recognize that at the core of who we are is the strength that we have in each other. And Jesse and Gina, I think that's one of the things that the Black community has suffered through over the past 50 or 60 years. We've lost that ability to be united as a people. We've never been monolithic. We've never been totally united. There's no doubt about that. But I will say that the people that you mentioned, Walter Fluker, you all know he was an assistant pastor at Second Baptist Church. You mentioned Aubrey Hendricks. You all know Aubrey and I were in our 20s running around Princeton, in the 1980s. It's just crazy that you mentioned. And then William Holmes Borders, you all know this great guy who was a tremendous influence over everybody, was the pastor of Second Baptist Church in Princeton from 1931 to 1937. And Jesse, you probably know that one of my predecessors, Heisel Taylor, your dad entrusted Operation Breadbasket and Rainbow Coalition to him when he ran for president in the United. We are here because God has ordained us to be here. I want to say that. If God has ordained us to be here for such a time as this, all of us, then we need to walk away with at least two things very, very quickly. One, we may not have it all together, but together we have it all. And Benjamin Mays would always say at the end of every single commencement of Morehouse Men, I only have a minute, only 60 seconds in it, forced upon me, didn't choose it, I must suffer if I lose it, only a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it. That's what we have. We have that time, and we have to take advantage of it.
That is a magnificent word of hope. I want to share with our those who are within the listening ears of this show that many of our guests, well, many of them know each other, but then that doesn't mean that they speak with each other every day.
Right.
And yet, amongst all of these men and women who come on our program, there is a unity of spirit in a different realm. And what we heard from Dr. Neighbors today, Gina, was a unity of spirit with Aubrey Hendricks, with Walter Fluker, with Bill Howard, with Dr. Franklin at Emory University, all of whom have been on our program, and they've spoken about this place where we come together in our history, in our sense of commonality, in our sense of struggle. And as James Baldwin said about Martin Luther King Jr. with his congregation in both Birmingham and Montgomery, they came together in their suffering. And when they suffered together, they found community. And in that community, they began to laugh at Mr. Charlie as Mr. Charlie would continue his oppressive ways on their faith and on their spirits. And so what a beautiful thing it is to hear from Dr. Neighbors, Gina, that in the realm of spirit, they are in universal agreement on the question of resilience. Gina, our final minute.
Our final thought, Fat Meat Fridays, and the subtitle is Learning to Discern. We have to see when the clouds are gathering, and we have to pay attention. And the clouds have gathered, and we have to run for shelter. And so I urge everyone, when you hear the shows that we've done this week, run to a church. There are plenty of churches with pastors who are not lining their pocket, but trying to line hearts with the Spirit of God, because in that is power. And that is where we get our sense of power from. I thank you guys so much for just allowing Fat Meat Friday to be a reflective time. But reflectivity is also activity. And so as we reflect, I urge you guys to take heed to some of the things that you've learned this week.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA 1580 Talk. Until next time.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.